Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures, and today we're doing part 105 of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights. We've taken a look at some of the wonderful mods people have been making and used them to talk about some of the wonderful biodiversity that we share our world with. And today, right before this next update, the update will actually probably be out by the time I upload this, just something to keep it on time with Planet Zoo. A lot of these mods may be broken, just in case, but they get fixed pretty quick, and the last few updates haven't really broke too many mods, but just be careful of that, of course. But a lot of these should be okay, but always be careful. Always err on the side of caution. But really interestingly, we've got a whole bunch of cool new animals. Not quite as much as the normal 7 or so that we do, but we've got a very interesting bunch of animals. So we're going to be starting off today with a fish done by Leaf and Buffsoo. Nice to see a little fish returning again. So we've got here the Silver Moonie, which is a little type of fish. These guys are kind of a moonfish, a moonie fish, or a fingerfish. These guys are, their name means, the genus name is Monodactylus angenus, which means one finger. So they kind of have like that one little finger looking to them. In terms of their environment, these guys are a marine freshwater fish, or brackish, and can be found in pelagic and the other waters, from depths of about 0 to 12 meters, so quite a shallow living fish, and lives in tropical waters from 24 to 28 degrees Celsius. And these guys still have quite a wide range. They can live up to, they live up in the Indo-West Pacific, so they can be found from East Africa to the Red Sea, places like that. I'm going to see them diving. There's one diving, I think. I think there's a baby as well. It's a little baby one, but it's just a good look at them. The Indo-West Pacific, so that we can found from Red Sea to East Africa, including the Persian Gulf, and then go up to about Samoa and New Caledonia and Australia. And they're also known from freshwater tidal zones in the Mekong, which is pretty interesting. So these guys are pretty smaller fish, but they can get decent size-ish. There's one over there. Let's have a look at that one over there. Let's see where I can find it. So these guys can get a pretty decent size. They get about 13 centimeters on average, or about 12 centimeters on average, but they can get up to about 27 centimeters, so about a foot long. And that's their kind of maximum length, but they get average about 12. They've got these bright yellow spines to them, and you can also see they've got the yellow as well. The small juveniles are typically more colourful, with the yellow over most of the dorsal fin, and then kind of darkens up as they get older. And they've got these two dark vertical bands here. And they have these large eyes, as you can see here, and quite a small mouth, which gives them a really interesting look. In terms of their biology, these guys are typically found in bays, mangroves, estuaries, tidal creeks, and lower reaches of freshwater streams, and occasionally in very silty coral reefs or coastal reefs. And they typically feed on things such as plankton and detritus. They're commonly seen in schools, so they're quite a common schooling fish. And small juveniles are either solitary or found in small aggregations. And they are highly territorial, so that's another thing to keep in mind. And they're caught usually with throw nets. And luckily, this is a species that's considered least concern, but they can be found in the pet trade, because people like them for aquariums. And there's minor commercial benefits because they can be caught with nets and potentially edible, but they're not very big fish. It's really not making the best eating, but that's okay. Really, really cool fish. I do like these guys. Leaf and Buffsoo always does a wonderful job. So next up, we have got the Southern Poodoos by Jen and Leaf. So another really nice mod here. Let's see if we can find the male. That's the female. Where's the male? There he is. A little bit of a legend. So the Southern Poodoo, or the genus name is Poodoo Poodoo. These are a South American deer that are native to the Andes of Chile and Argentina, and typically found in high altitude forests. So these guys are actually the second smallest deer in the world, and the only smaller deer is the the Northern Poodoo, which is slightly smaller than these guys. So these guys in general get about 35 to 45 centimeters, or 14 to 18 inches tall, and at the shoulder, and they weigh about 6.4 to 13 kilograms, or 14 to 30 pounds, so very, very small deer. The antlers of the southern pudu as well, they grow up to about 5 to 9 centimeters, or about 2 to 3 inches, and they tend to curve backwards, very similar to like a mountain goat. And you can see they've got this quite dark chestnut brown coat with its tufts on the front as well, and that covers the antlers as well. And they're typically found at lower elevations than its sister species, at sea level of up to 2,000 meters. So that's pretty interesting. So these guys, as I mentioned, live in those high altitude forests. Let's see if we can find another female there. Really, really cool guys here. And there's actually been a lot of research into looking at the different populations. And there's a population from Chihole Island that's been estimated to be isolated from the more mainland populations of pudu for about 20,000 years. And they're often considered a separate subspecies. And this isolation actually allows them to become an distinct evolutionary unit, and that increases their vulnerability because this is actually quite a unique genetic diversity of animals, and people do want to preserve them. And because they're on an island, the pudu won't be able to come and recolonize, so they're very interested in keeping those conserved. And yeah, really, really cool animals. There's obviously small deer, feed on small plants, things like that. And in terms of their conservation status, they are considered near threatened because they are threatened by things such as climate change and habitat degradation, like most other animals. But really, really cool guys. They're not doing too badly. And look at this cute little fawn. How cute. Little cutie. And they're quite cute little deers, if I do say so myself. I'm a really, really big fan. Really, really cute. So Leaf and Jen did a really wonderful job with those. So we're going to be moving on next to this one. Was just done by Just Leaf. We have got here the jungle cat, also known as the reed cat or the swamp cat or something like that. It rhymes with all that, you know. These guys are a medium-sized cat that is typically found around the Middle East, from the Caucasus to South and Southeast Asia, and even found in southern China. But they're typically found in riparian areas with dense vegetation, swamps, jungles, things like that, which is pretty interesting. So these guys are related to things like the black-footed cat and the sand cat in the genus Felis, which is quite interesting. And in terms of characteristics, they're kind of like a medium-sized cat. They're the largest of the extant Felis species, so they're quite a bit bigger than your modern house cats. The head and body length is typically between 59 to 76 centimeters, or 23 to 30 inches, and stand about 14 inches or 36 centimeters tall, and weigh between 2 to 16 kilograms. And the body size actually varies a lot between west to east, so this is attributed to the greater competition for the small cats. So because there's a lot more cats in like Asia and China, they've got more competition, so they tend to be a little bit larger around the western side. Yeah, western side, just making sure. And they also get smaller as you get more tropical. So ones that are living in more northern latitudes tend to be a bit bigger because of Bergman's rule, which is basically means that animals that live in higher latitudes get bigger because it's cooler. And these guys are also sexually dimorphic, so the females are typically a little bit smaller and lighter than the males, and they have this long, narrow face with that nice white muzzle, and they have these large pointed ears and kind of this reddish-brown or even greyish coat, and they have these very cat-like irises and the elliptical pupils and things like that. And their coat is quite standard reddish-brown or grey and quite uniform in colour. They don't really have spots, though there have been albino and melanistic individuals recorded. And there are also kittens, as you can see here. Let's find a kitten as we talk about them because they're quite cute. Kittens are actually typically got some stripes and spots to them. And adults actually may retain some of these markings, which gives some cat kind of a little bit of a striped appearance or a mottled appearance. And there's typically two molts because they have a rougher coat in the winter and a lighter coat in the summer. So what kind of happens? Like most animals that live in cooler climates, they'll have a summer coat and a winter coat. So the winter coat's a little bit longer and better able to keep the heat in, and then they molt that. And in the summer, they have a coat that's like a little bit leaner, so they don't overheat. But yeah, really, really cool guys. I just love these guys. In terms of their distribution and habitat, they're found in the Middle East, Caucasus, all throughout India, Sri Lanka, and southern China, and most of Southeast Asia. They're quite a generalist, so they can be found in all sorts of different habitats, such as swamps, wetlands, authorial riparian areas, even grasslands and shrubs. But they do like places that have lots of water and quite dense vegetation. And they're actually quite common as well in agricultural lands, such as beans and sugarcane fields along its range, and often quite sited near human settlements. And because of reeds and tall grass typically found in the habitats, they also get the name the reed cat or the swamp cat, and can thrive even in areas with sparse vegetation, though. But they do not adapt well to cold climates or live in areas where snowfall is common. And historical research show that they could live up to about 2,000 meters or up to 7,000 feet up in the Himalayas, where it doesn't really like these rainforest or woodland areas. It prefers areas with lots of water and vegetation, though they can be pretty generalist in that regard, where they get their name, the swamp cat and reed cat, because of that preference for like reeds and tall grasses and wetland habitats. In Turkey, they've actually been found in wetlands and things like that, and they've even been found in like Jerusalem between 2012 and 2016, in Palestine territories, places like that, and recorded in Iran, and they're quite common in India. They're the most common small wildcat, and there have actually been few jungle cat mummies found in ancient Egypt as well. So that really shows how wide their range is. So in terms of their ecology and behavior, these guys are typically diurnal and they hunt throughout the day. They actively tend to decrease during the hot noon hours, and they will often rest in burrows, grass thickets, and shrubs. They often sunbathe as well, and estimated to walk about 3 to 6 kilometers, or 1.9 to 3.7 miles a night as well, although it likely varies a lot during the prey. And the behavior of the jungle cat has not been exclusively studied, but they are solitary in nature and do not really associate with other cats, except for the mating season. And like other cats, they use urine and scent marking, things like that, to mark territories. Main predators for these cats includes leopards, tigers, bears, dholes, fishing cats, snakes, raptors, jackals, and things like that. And the golden jackal in particular is actually a major competitor for the jungle cat. And when they encounter a threat, these guys will often vocalize and produce like small roars, which is actually quite uncommon for members of the Fila genus. And they actually can meow as well, as some, though it's somewhat louder than your typical domestic cat. And in terms of diet and hunting, these guys are primarily carnivores. They feed on all sorts of small mammals. So they feed on gerbils, hares, and rodents. And they also will hunt birds, fish, insects, small snakes, and will typically hunt prey less than a kilogram. But they have been occasionally known to hunt animals as large as young gazelles. And they're actually unusual as they're partly omnivorous as well. So they will eat fruits, especially in the winter. And rodents do consist of most of their diet in a lot of places. And typically how they hunt is that they stalk their prey, and following by a sprinter leaf with their ears picking up the sounds. And they use different techniques to secure prey. So they can perform, like the caracal, they perform kind of like a high leap or something to try and catch their prey. And they can also jump one or two really high leaps to kind of grab birds in the air. And they're quite effective climbers and quite good swimmers as well. They can swim to 1.5 kilometers an hour and plunge into water to catch fish. So they're quite a generalist in that regard. So in terms of their reproduction, let's grab a cute little kitten as we talk about their reproduction. Oh, that's not what we wanted. There we are. So cute little kitten. Both sexes get about sexually mature at about a year age. The female will enter estrus lasting about 5 days from January to March. And though this kind of changes a lot with their range, so some places when it's cooler, they might change it a little bit just to better time the seasons, things like that. But mating behavior is quite similar to domestic cats, so the male will pursue the female and kind of mate with her, and then kind of separate, do their own thing. Gestation lasts about 2 months or so, and births typically take place between December and June, but that does vary a lot depending on the geography and where the cats live, because sometimes cool areas might be better. And before the babies are born, the mother will prepare a den of grass and an abandoned animal burrow, a reed bed, or hollow trees. Litters will consist of typically 1 to 5 kittens, though on average is about 2 to 3 kittens. And females can raise about 2 litters in a year, so they're quite effective sometimes. And kittens, when they're born, they weigh between 43 and 55 grams, or 1.5 to 1.9 ounces at birth, though they tend to be much smaller in the wild than they are in captivity. They're also initially born blind and helpless, and they open their eyes at about 10 to 13 days and are fully weaned at about 3 months. Males do not usually participate in raising kittens, like most cats. However, in captivity, males appear to be very protective of their offspring, and kittens will actually begin to catch their own prey at about 6 months and leave their mother's side about 8 to 9 months. The lifespan for a jungle cat in captivity is about 15 to 20 years, though it's probably much higher than it would be in the wild because of many other factors such as predators, things like that. Generation length for the jungle cat is about 2.5 years. So, in terms of its conservation, as we talk about these wonderful guys, they are considered least concerned because they have a wide range and many different live in many different habitats. But because they're so really do like those areas of like wetlands, things like that, they are quite susceptible to destructions of wetlands and habitat loss, especially dam constructions, urbanization as well, and pollution. And illegal hunting is a threat in a lot of places. And even in Southeast Asia, because they're hunted so much, they are considered a rarity. And since the 1960s, populations of the Caucasian jungle cats have been around the Caspian Sea and have actually drastically declined, and only small populations exist today. So even though they are quite common, localized populations, especially in Southeast Asia and around the Caucasus, they've actually declined quite a lot. Even considered in Jordan, they're highly affected by agriculture because people hunt and poison them for attacking their poultry. And actually considered also rare and threatened in Afghanistan, and India also exports these cats in large numbers until that trade was banned in 1979. Though there's still some illegal trade, but these guys can still be used to be the most common wildcats in their village as well. Though they're still now rarely encountered in a lot of places. So that's why in countries such as Thailand, they're considered critically endangered. In Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, they've been subject to hunting, so they are considered rare in those areas. And there are a lot of places where they're inhibited hunting them, like Bangladesh, China, Pakistan, Turkey, things like that. But there's other places where they can still be hunted, in such as Laos, Lebanon, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, and things like that. But overall, they're doing okay. Though there are reductions in their populations in a lot of areas, they're still doing okay. Really, really cool animals. How can you not love these guys? Leaf has done a wonderful job. So next up, we're moving on to a dog. We've got here from Leverwolf, we have got the Grey Fox. That's a mention done by Leverwolf that came out really, really nice. Really big fan of this guy. So the Grey Fox is an omnivorous mammal from the family Canidae, so they're related to other dogs and foxes and things. These guys are quite widespread throughout North America and Central America. And this species and the islands fox, which lives in the Channel Islands, are the only living members of the genus Urocyon, and it's actually considered quite genetically basal to all living canids, which is pretty cool. So in terms of the description here, you can see they've got this grayish color to it with a little bit of reddish as well, and really, really cool. There's also little sexual dimorphism in these guys, so say for females being slightly smaller than the males. These guys typically in length, they range from about 76 to 112 centimeters, or 29 to 44 inches in total length, with the tail being 27 to 44 centimeters, or 10 to 17 inches. And they typically weigh between 3 to 7 kilograms, or 7 to 15 pounds, that they can get up to about 20 pounds, or 9 kilograms. And the easiest way to distinguish these guys from red fox is a lack of the black stockings that they distinguish a lot from the red fox. And they're also a little bit smaller as well, and they have a stripe of black hair that runs down the middle of their tail, as you kind of see there. And they have white on their ears, throat, chest, belly, and hind limbs, and also have black around their eyes and their lips and their nose and things like that, as you can kind of see here. Really, really pretty animals. So they also contrast with all Vulpes kind of foxes and fennec foxes, things like that. They have oval instead of slit pupils, as we can hopefully see here. You can see they're much more oval rather than the slit pupils that are like red foxes have. And they have reddish colorations you can see on parts of their body, like the ears and the sides here as well. And their weight can be similar to that of red fox, but grey fox is typically smaller, and they typically their fur isn't as long, and they have shorter limbs. So, in terms of their origin, these guys are found typically appeared in North America about the mid-Pliocene, so about 3 or 4 million years ago, where it lived with animals such as ground sloths, ancient mastodons, and elephants. llamas and early horses, and they typically lived through the Pleistocene. And the genus is actually the most basal of all the living canids, which is really cool. And recent mitochondrial genetic studies suggest that the North American eastern and western fox actually separated kind of from the mid-Pleistocene, and they're separate sister taxa. And the dwarf relative, the island fox, is likely descended from mainland, and just because of transported by humans from island to island and things like that, which is pretty interesting. So in terms of the habitat, these guys are found typically in rocky, wooded, bushy regions in the southern half of North America to southern California, not California, southern Canada, can be found in Quebec and Manitoba, to the northern parts of South America, so like Venezuela and Colombia, and excluding the mountains of the northwestern United States, and the only canid whose natural range actually spans both North and South America. That's quite interesting. So in terms of behavior, these guys are actually also specifically adapted to climb trees. They have strong hooked claws that allow them to scramble up trees to escape many predators, such as coyotes and dogs, or to reach tree-bound food. And they can climb branchless vertical trees up to about 18 meters and jump from branch to branch. And they descend primarily from jumping from branch to branch or descend slowly backwards like a domestic cat. They're also quite nocturnal or crepuscular, and they make their dens in like hollow tree stumps or approach burrows during the day. And some fox dens can be located 30 feet above the ground, which is quite interesting. And for the most part, the rest of the ground, they rest on the ground rather than high up in the trees. And also prior to European colonization of North America, the red fox was actually found primarily in boreal forests and grey fox in deciduous forests. But with the increase of human populations, the habitat selections have changed. Grey foxes that live near human populations tend to choose areas near hardwood trees, locations used primarily by humans, or roads utilizing their habitat. And also the increase of coyote populations have reduced certain fox populations because the grey fox have chosen habitats where they can get away from coyotes easier. So it tends to be habitats near areas with humans so they can get away from the coyotes. And the larger predators of the grey fox, things like coyotes and bobcats, will tend to avoid human use areas such as paved roads and things like that. And that makes a great habitat and safe habitat for the grey fox. And they heavily utilize edges of forests as travel corridors and things like that. And the choices do not change based on sex, season, or time of day. And they also do their majority of hunting on the edges of like forest and things, and use them to escape from predators as well. So they're considered kind of an edge species. And look how cute they are when they sleep. Find the other one. Look at you. You're very, very cute. So in terms of interspecies competition, these guys will often hunt the same prey as bobcats and coyotes that live in the same region. In order to avoid interspecific competition, they actually will develop behaviors and stuff to increase their survival habits. So in areas with grey wolves and coyotes hunt the same food, they will be in observed giving space to them, and they'll stay within their own established hunting range. They also might occupy different habitats from them. So in California, these guys will live in different areas with fewer competitors and low shrubby areas at greater distance from other predators. And also been suggested that grey foxes become more active at night to avoid the larger diurnal predators as well. But they still will fall victim to coyotes and bobcats, and when killed, the carcasses are unconsumed, which means that they are basically just killed to reduce competition in habitat. And the grey foxes often are killed near the boundary of the established range, and they're mesopredators, so they're mid-tier predators, so they all feed on things mostly like small mammals. And when coyotes are known as the de facto apex predator due to the removal of wolves in North America. And it also explains the behavior or the tendency for grey foxes to change behavior in response to coyote threats because they are lower in the food chain. So in terms of reproduction, these guys are monogamous like other foxes. Their breeding season of the grey fox varies a lot geographically. So some places they'll breed, let's say, in early March, such as Michigan, and then in Alabama they'll breed like February, for example. Typically, gestation lasts about 53 days, and litter size can be about 1 to 7, though it kind of averages about 4 or 3 or 4 per female. They reach sexual maturity at about 10 months of age, and kits will begin to hunt with their parents at the age of 3 months. By the time that they are about 4 months old, the kits would have developed their permanent dentition and can now kind of forage on their own. The family groups will remain together until the autumn, and the young males will disperse once they reach sexual maturity. And actually, in a study that shows that 9 juvenile grey foxes, the males dispersed up to 84 kilometers, while the females stayed kind of within 3 kilometers of the den and always returned. But on the other hand, adult grey foxes show no sign of dispersing for either gender, and in terms of their lifespan, they can live between 6 and 10 years. And the annual reproductive cycle has been described as through smears and things like that, and they become fertile earlier and remain fertile longer than the females compared to males. So males tend to be fertile for longer and earlier. And logs, trees, rock burrows, and abandoned dwellings can be great den sites. And dens can be used all the time and during the year, but mostly during the whelping season. And dens can be built in bushy or wooded regions to be better concealed than the dens of kind of red foxes. It's a little bit harder to find. So let's have a look at this other one here. So in terms of their diet, they're omnivorous. They frequently prey upon eastern cottontails, so types of rabbits, but they'll also feed on voles, shrews, and birds. In California, they eat rodents and lagomorphs, but they will also feed on carrion. In some parts of the western United States, they're also primarily insectivorous or even herbivorous. So they feed a lot on fruits and seek whatever fruits they can find, and they'll eat more vegetable matter than kind of a red fox. And within this kind of, they'll also increase their diets in terms of fruits and invertebrates such as grasshoppers and moss and things from the transition to winter to spring. And as nuts, grains, and fruits become more numerous, they're often cached by foxes. And typically they'll attempt to cover the area with their scent through their scent glands or urine. And this makes them a dual purpose to allow them to come find food later and kind of scare off other animals from taking their food. So in terms of their role in the ecosystem, these guys are mainly a mesopredator, so they're really important for regulating populations such as small rodents of like wood rats, cotton rats, and mice. And in addition to that, they actually are less welcome hosts to some external parasites that include fleas, lice, nematodes, and tapeworms. And the most common parasites for the grey fox is the flea. However, several new parasitic arthropods have been found in central Mexico, and a warming climate actually may encourage them to climb up north. So as the world warms, the pests and the parasites will be able to spread to more northern populations of grey foxes. And in terms of their hunting, they are hunted in the US, and the intensity of hunting is correlated with the value of their pelts. And between the 1970s, 71, and 75 and 76 hunting seasons, the price of fox pelts greatly increased, and the number of individuals jumped over sixfold from 26,000 to 163,000 killed. And there have been reportedly about 500,000 grey wolves killed every year for their fur. Not grey wolves, grey foxes. But they are considered, I believe, still least concerned, so they are still quite common and still have quite a wide range. They're doing okay. But obviously hunting and climate change may actually affect their populations quite a bit. And look at these little cuties. Very, very cute guys. So Level Wolf really did a wonderful job with this cute little grey fox. So we're going to be moving on to our last animal here. So this was done by Gaboy and Genora Pizza. So we're going back into the Ice Age. We're having a look at the American lion, Panthera atrox. So let's have a look at these wonderful guys here. So Panthera atrox, known as the American lion. These guys are an extinct species of lion that has lived in North America during the Pleistocene to the early Holocene, from about 350,000 years ago to about 11,000 years ago, with its fossils being found from Alaska down to Mexico. And genetic analyses show that these guys are close relatives of the late Pleistocene Eurasian cave lion, and are actually 25% larger, or about a quarter bigger, than modern lions, which makes it one of the largest known felids, which is very, very cool. So these guys were first described in like the 1830s, and there's been a little bit of debate whether they were kind of jaguars or something like that. But now they're basically considered Panthera atrox, and there is some evidence potentially that they could be South American American lions, but they most likely represent the Pleistocene subspecies of the jaguar, though that's neither here nor there. It just depends. Typically from genetics, it shows that these guys are jaguars. But in terms of evolution, these guys kind of split off from the cave lion when they first got to America. Mitochondrial studies show that they basically got to America about 350,000 years ago. And the most recent ancestor from the P. atrox lineage lived about 200,000 years ago. So this implies they were just typically like isolated from cave lions It's the start of the Illinoisan glaciation, which was a population that lived in eastern Thuringia at the time and kind of split off. And then that basically allowed them to split off into the cave lion that lived throughout Eurasia and up into Thuringia, and then the American lion that lived in the US and up to Alaska, which is quite cool. So it really tells of evolution. And the study also indicates that the modern lion is actually the closest living relative to both Atrox and Splayer, so the American and cave lions. The lineages kind of split about 2 million years ago, and before a whole genome-wide sequence of lions from Africa and Asia, so that the lineage of cave lions diverged from modern lions about 500,000 years ago, or about 400 to 500,000 years ago. So it's quite interesting. So in terms of the description, these American lions are quite big. They are estimated to measure between 1.6 and 2.5 meters from the tip of their nose to the base of the tail. So about 5 to 8 feet long, and stood about 1.2 meters or about 3.9 feet at the shoulder. But they were smaller than a lot of animals that they were contemporary with, such as short-faced bears and even Smilodon, the saber-toothed cat. They were smaller than those, which is believed to exceed at about 400, 500 kilograms. These guys were still kind of very, very big animals, and weights have been estimated up to about 420 kilograms, still making them upwards of one of the largest cats ever found. And more recent estimates suggest that these guys could get up about 256 or about 560 pounds for males, and about 351 kilograms or 770 pounds for the largest specimens known, which is quite interesting. And from what we know from really well-preserved specimens from like the La Brea tar pits, we know a lot about their morphology, that they look a lot like modern lions, but they are considerably larger. So they're quite comparable to like Splayer, so the cave lions, and the Pleistocene Natobodomi lion of Eastern Africa, which was pretty much just the African lion, but bigger, or just the population of the large lions. But preserved skin as well is thought to be found from Argentina, which suggests they were quite reddish in color, though it's believed that this is actually jaguars, so it's kind of neither here nor there, and that was proposed. But really, really cool, guys. Let's have a look at the females as we talk about the other ones. So that's the big male. In terms of the earliest known American lions, south of Alaska was kind of the Sichumotian stage, so their last kind of interglacial period. And they're generally not found in the same areas of jaguars because they typically like open habitats. They are absent from eastern Canada and the northeastern United States due to the presence of dense boreal forests. But they were also formerly believed to colonize South America, but typically they found these were just large jaguars. That there is evidence potentially of them living in... Ooh, what are you doing in the back there? Playing with mum. Well, that's very, very cute. But these guys could have been American lions, and they've been reported to be, but they're most likely the extinct Pleistocene giant jaguar. So in terms of their habitat, the American lion very much like living in savannas and grasslands like their modern African relatives, though in some areas they did live in colder conditions, and they probably did use caves for shelter from cold weather and line their dens with grass and leaves, similar to modern Siberian tigers. The remains of American lions are not typically as abundant as predators such as Smilodon fatalis, which is the smaller North American species of saber-toothed cat, and dire wolves, or Aesionodurus, and the La Brea tar pits, which suggests that they've maybe been better at evading traps, potentially due to either greater intelligence or just not liking that kind of habitat where the traps are. But these guys were typically big predators, taking the same kind of niche as modern African lions. So they would have been preying on deer, they would have been preying on horses, camels, tapirs, lots of large ungulates like bison, and even potentially mammoths and many other large animals, and potentially sloths and things like that. Just anything that's big enough they would probably be hunting. So quite a varied diet. And there's actually evidence of predation on bison by American lions by a mummified carcass that's been of bison, nicknamed Blue Babe, which is discovered in Alaska, which has clear bite and claw marks from a lion. And based on the largely intact nature of the carcass, it probably froze before the lions could eat it, which sucks for the lions, but very good for us. So very similar. As we'll ever talk about the cute little babies, we're going to have a little bit of a morbid talk about their extinction. So the American lion went extinct with most of the Pleistocene megafauna, so mammoths, ground sloths, most of those big animals, the woolly rhinoceros, all the big Pleistocene animals that we all know and love, they went extinct around the Pleistocene during the Quaternary extinction event, with the most recent fossils of the Pantheratrox, or the American lion, probably dating about 11,000 years ago. Though they have actually been found in the trash heaps of Paleolithic Native Americans, which is just that humans could have contributed to their extinction. Although, because of how controversial the Pleistocene extinctions are, could have been a multitude of factors: disease, climate change, humans, and a combination of all these factors as well. So have a look at these cuties. We'll watch them play. And playing with Dad. Look at this cute little animation. Oh, so cute. Very, very cute. But yeah, really, really interesting animals, and I love this reconstruction of it, because most of the time, people, when they reconstruct American lions, they typically do it just like make a giant African lion. But these guys potentially had quite different look to them. As you see, it's not reconstructed with that quite a big mane. That seems to be something that was most likely very much exclusive to African lions. Though these guys could have had a mane. There's no evidence of cave lions having manes, really, due to cave paintings, but a really, really awesome animal here. I really love the design. Gaboy and Genora Pizza really did an awesome job with this American lion, and I'm definitely a big fan. So, yeah, I'm gonna end this video now. So, really, really awesome to see these mods, and really excited to talk about the new Grassland Animal Pack. I'll be doing 2 parts of that because there's just so many animals to cover, so it's going to be really, really cool. So, yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified about anything. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.